Well, here we go, kicking off another brand new hour of the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you here to start your day, all right? And what a day it's going to be. We're going to bring you truth, evaluate as close as we can all the big stories, and there are big ones today. Let's get right to it in the foxhole of freedom. Three big things to know. Number one, grocery giant Kroger set to close dozens of its stores over the next year and a half. A huge surprise to many as the company has been turning big profits. Number two, the Supreme Court has turned in a big win for President Trump, granting the request to resume and continue deporting illegals to third countries and not the ones they came from. We'll talk about that in number three. The war is over. The 12-day war has ended. And then it hasn't. We were in the first few hours of a ceasefire that President Trump thought would become a permanent peace in the Middle East after about 24 hours. But unfortunately, in the last little while, Iran violated that ceasefire. Israel planning to return full force with a vicious counterattack on Iran. Their policy is to return fire in the extreme. Prior to this happening, and this is all just happening the last few minutes, President J.D. Vance had praised Donald Trump and the effort for a peace agreement in the Middle East. Here he is.
When I left the White House, I thought that we might be able to get it across the finish line before this broadcast, and it looks like the president has been able to do that. I mean, look, he's been working the phones constantly. Frankly, before the 12-day war started, but certainly over the past 12 days, the president's been extremely clear about America's national objective here. It is to create a world where Iran cannot build a nuclear weapon. We, of course, destroyed the nuclear program that they had, and the president told the entire team, we're going to work to make sure that they don't try to rebuild that nuclear capability in the future. And it's, look, this is a great thing. For Israel, think about this. They've accomplished an important military objective. They've helped us destroy the Iranian nuclear program. They've also destroyed the conventional missile capability of Iran that threatened the country of Israel. For the Iranians, I think this is a new opportunity to actually pursue the path of peace. As I said yesterday, what the Iranians have showed through their support of terror networks, through their now failed effort to build a nuclear weapon, is that they're just not very good at war. And I think the president really hit the reset button and said, look, let's actually produce long-term peace for the region. That's always been his goal. I actually think when we look back, we will say the 12-day war was an important reset moment for the entire region.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the reset is not complete today. Maybe it's the 13-day war. The Israeli Defense Forces say it intercepted more than 15 UAVs launched from Iran overnight. And after agreeing to Trump's proposal, they say, well, they're going to have a strong response. Here's the latest. Israel Defense Minister Israel Katz said he ordered the military to respond forcefully to Iran's violation of the ceasefire agreement with high-intensity strikes against regime targets in the heart of Tehran. In light of Iran's blatant violation of the ceasefire declared by the President of the United States and the launching of missiles toward Israel, in accordance with the Israeli government's policy to respond forcefully to any violation, I've instructed the IDF, in coordination with the Prime Minister, to continue the intense operation striking regime targets and terror infrastructure in Tehran, he said. The announcement of peace from the president came first on his Truth Social platform last night. It read this way. Donald Trump saying that the war was over. Thank you to everybody. I'm going to get it here for you. Very important that you hear what he had to say. The ceasefire is now in effect, he said 5 hours ago. Apparently that is not true. A lot of posts on his Truth Social. I'm backing up because we got a lot to deal with here. It is just a mess is what we've got. Here's what he wrote. Congratulations to everyone. It's been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours. That ceasefire violated by Iran. Now, no telling how long they'll stay in this and no telling who launched the missiles. The command and control in the state of Iran is suspect, to say the least. Suspect. I think it's safe to say no World War III, at least not yet. And I don't think there'll be a protracted quagmire for the United States in the Middle East as so many people were predicting. No nation building, just American power. And of course, that precision military destruction of the threat of Iran having nuclear weapons, which has not changed. Nuclear weapons that the regime surely would have pointed at us. For the United States, it's still a decisive victory on the battlefield, but more importantly, on the global stage. President Trump demonstrated that he means what he says, and if you ignore his warnings, you do so at your own peril or the peril of your country. The American victory over Iran stands. And over its radical Islamic regime, it comes after 46 years of instability and unrest, undermines all the terrorist organizations. Iran might be in its death throes today. That could be what we're witnessing. But here's another takeaway. For 46 years, the money from Tehran funded Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, terror attacks inside the United States, and plots to kill Americans here in the homeland, too. It is hard to overstate how important the attack was on Saturday. The political ramifications are many. I mean, honestly, what do the Democrats have left? Are they going to complain that President Trump wasted too much money disarming Iran, something that every president since Jimmy Carter failed to do, most notably Barack Obama, who gave him $1.7 billion in cash, and Joe Biden, whose left-wing ideology had them placating the regime and pumping in lots of money as well? None of this is an insignificant development. War, no war, war again. But the United States dropping the midnight hammer was clear. We'll do it again. President Trump has always preached peace through strength. He just showed the world how he intends to get there. Are we there quite yet? Apparently not. On Monday, Iran reacted to getting its nuclear program obliterated by the United States Air Force by launching a pathetic response against a U.S. airbase in Qatar. 10 missiles launched, 9 were taken out, 1 hit an empty field. So, 0 damage, 0 casualties. That was the takeaway. Oh, and the Iranians told us in advance the missiles were coming. They didn't intend to hit anything, it seems. So with the 12-day war maybe close to over, President Trump thought it was over. We're not sure now. Israel is responding viciously to the breaking of the truce. All right, let's take we've got a live feed. Donald Trump is headed to NATO today. We can take that live feed of Donald Trump preparing to leave for the NATO summit with this as the backdrop. There's Air Force One, ready to go overseas to the NATO summit. We'll see what the president is able to put together on that flight. Can he stop the war yet? Maybe. As he flies off to see our NATO allies, where he will demand that 5% of their GDP is spent on defense to protect against Russia and China and apparently still Iran. We'll be right back. All right, so the 12-day war up in the air right now. The ceasefire that was there is short-lived, to say the least. It was announced last night, 8:30 last night, roughly. So here we are, and there's still time to reflect on the leadership that President Trump displayed. The sophisticated precision attack that for the first time in nearly 50 years, it may take a moment here, but it could deliver some stable peace to the Middle East over time. Let's be clear. The U.S. really is the only nation on earth capable of delivering such a surgically precise and devastating blow to our enemies anywhere on the planet. The strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities were a stunning display of military precision, power, and technological dominance, penetrating advanced air defenses without detection or retaliation, using air, cyber, and space assets to jam radar and strike buried targets with zero civilian casualties. It showcased unmatched capability and President Trump's unwavering faith in the men and women of the U.S. military to pull it off clean, and they did. Operation Midnight Hammer wasn't just a mission, it was a global message. With stealth bombers and bunker busters, America reminded adversaries like Iran, Russia, and China that we lead. where others cannot follow. The Iranian representative first claimed that the U.S. had violated international law. Seriously? You're going to stand up there and claim that, well, you behead dissidents, throw people you disagree with off rooftops, and fund terrorism around the globe at the expense of your own people. You're going to stand up there and say that? What's worse is that Democrats have been echoing the same talking points. They've lost their minds. It's a tale as old as time at this point. The familiar calls for impeachment, of course. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, an embarrassment unto herself, called for Donald Trump's impeachment. And Bernie Sanders whipped up a crowd in Oklahoma with this. Listen.
Not only is this news that I've just heard this second alarming, that all of you have just heard, but it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right.
Talking about both sides of your mouth, of your wacko, socialist, communist mouth. They were screaming about reckless warmongering and abuse of power, while conveniently forgetting their own track record. Going to guess they will be silent for a while now. I mean, how many times can you be so wrong and still remain loud and arrogant? These are the same folks, by the way, who had no problem and no complaint at all when Barack Obama killed 4 American citizens with drone attacks abroad without congressional approval. They were silent when Obama dropped, what was it? Was it 22,000 bombs on 7 countries in the final months of his presidency? Something like that. Might have been more than that, actually. But 7 countries, 25,000 bombs, who can count? Not a peep from Bernie Sanders or the morons in the crowd. The same folks who funneled billions in cash to Iran under disastrous nuclear deals that led to this moment in time. But who's trying to deliver peace and peace of mind? President Trump, of course, and again. Since the Midnight Hammer mission, they've been screaming, impeach Trump for actually protecting American interests, for stopping a rogue regime dead in its tracks that wanted to kill you and me. Spare me. They're not mad about the strikes. They're mad because Trump did what they never had the guts or the balls to do. And now the war will come to an end. Maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow. But it will end. And Donald Trump will come out on top. So expect to hear nothing at all from the Democrats. They need something new. You see, the economy's doing great. Trillions of dollars of investment pouring in. The border is sealed like a duck's ass. And a war that was stopped in its tracks will also be top of the page. But on the left, they don't care. They would attack the man even if he turned water into wine. They're mad because he's winning. And their globalist, appeasement-loving worldview is crumbling before their eyes. And the war machine has slowed down, if only for a moment. It's slowed down. There are a couple of Democrats, though, that can see through the fog of war and political war. A couple. One of those Democrats, Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, has retained some of his sanity. The guy who has suffered a massive stroke is more together than all the rest, calling the airstrike in Iran for what it actually was. Listen to this.
There's going to be a lot of people in my party that are going to disagree with the strike in Iran, and I actually support calling for that thing. I think it was entirely appropriate. And again, there might be votes on that. So for me, that's not a war. That was a very limited military exercise, and it struck that, and then that's where we're at. So really, it really wasn't about unconstitutional or it's anything like that. It was like a very, very limited military engagement, and then it took them out, damaged them severely.
All right. Took them out, damaged them severely. We don't know the state of the war today. There was a war, then a ceasefire declared by the President of the United States, then some attacks by Iran on Israel, and Israel now planning a full-scale retaliation in the heart of Tehran. Meanwhile, we can still watch Air Force One preparing to leave for NATO. It'll be wheels up here shortly as Donald Trump is heading over to NATO for the summit of the NATO countries, where he will demand that 5% of GDP be spent be spent on defense. No question. It's going to be an interesting couple of days. We'll keep an eye on all of it for you right here from the chair. I'll take a break and be back. Remember to follow me on X today. If you're not a follower, you need to be on X where we're live. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Real America's Voice Television, of course. We're live globally. Thank you for being here. It's the Steve Gruber Show.